Welcome to Lyric Lab Poetry, everyone. My name is Martin Jago, and as you can see, this week I'm not actually in my office where I should be. I'm stuck here at the kitchen table, and the reason for that is I'm going through the second set of galleys from my publisher on my forthcoming poetry chapbook, Black Plastic Blues. And before we go any further, let me just say you should definitely buy a copy of this book if you haven't yet already done so. Please support poets and their poetry by buying their books. And Black Plastic Blues is a poetry chapbook in which all the poems revolve around a central motif of record players and old school vinyl. And it's a really interesting way to explore, because rather than one theme, you can explore multiple themes and you anchor those to that central motif. So I encourage you all to go and buy a copy of the book. There you are. I've done the sales pitch. Thank you for watching. And that's the I think for the handsome price of just around $20, including shipping. Sorry, Martin, did you say including shipping? That can't be right. No, that's absolutely right. That is absolutely right. $20 including shipping. $20 including shipping. Wait a minute. That's the cost of 2 pints of lager in a fancy pub in central London. I'll tell you what, that lager will last you. Well, how long will it last you, Martin? Well, it's not going to last you any time at all, is it, Martin? Knowing you're sort of first. Well, that is exactly my point, you see. $20, 2 pints of lager in a fancy London pub, all these poems, which I tell you will last much longer. You know, so rather than getting inebriated on alcohol, why not get slightly squiffy on the heady mix of these poems in Black Plastic Blues? Tipsy on the lyric. I love that. Tipsy on the lyric, yes. Richmond upon Thames, Saffron upon Walden, Hay on Wye, tipsy on the lyric. Okay, enough of this nonsense. Let's get back to what we're here to explore, which is galleys. This is not often spoken or written about, and I think it's a really important part of the publishing relationship that you have with your editor and your publisher. So the galleys are a vital component of the process, and we're going to dig in and find out exactly what galleys are. I've got some examples here right behind me. So the manuscript you submitted to the publisher in the first place was probably in a Word document. That's the manuscript of your collection of poems. And then you have the edited version of the manuscript when you've gone through a back and forth with the editor. Of course, you have edited the collection of poems long before you've sent it to the publisher, and it is the best version of the manuscript that you can possibly provide. But you're then going to enter into a relationship with an editor who's going to maybe point some things out and offer some editorial advice. So you'll have the manuscript as the document you initially send, and then you'll have the edited version of that manuscript after this process with the editor. And then at that point, and only at that point, will the editor send your manuscript to a typesetter. And what's going to happen is the document, when it arrives with the typesetter, is going to be moved from whatever format it's in. Let's say it's a Microsoft Word document. It's going to be moved over into software that will prepare it to look exactly as it will look, or as close as it can possibly get to looking the way it will look when you print off the final book and you see those poems in the finished product of the chapbook. And it does that by using software that's designed exactly for that. I think Adobe InDesign is a kind of industry standard. I don't know if this particular publisher I'm working with uses that, but there are sometimes problems, not necessarily with Adobe or Microsoft. It need not pertain to those particular programs, software at all. But there is sometimes an issue when you move from one software and you move something from one into another. And so the typesetter's job is to make sure that everything is as it is supposed to be. And if you think about it, working with Microsoft Word as I do, it may be that a prose poem on the page that looks this wide and this long suddenly is looking this wide and this long, because it's conforming to the specific parameters and margin settings and paper size that will make up your finished book. And as well as that, the typesetter is then going to look at the poems on the page and see if they flow, see if the break that occurs at the end of one page onto the next looks natural, and is going to take care of things like spacing and other things too, which I'd not really thought about before I first started working with editors and publishing companies. That each particular press will have its own sort of in-house style manual, if you like. It may be that one press decides that every title on the page, every poem title will be capitalized, where that may not be a natural choice for you when you are working with your initial document in Word before sending it to the publisher. Another way to think about this is that the manuscript is a kind of, I suppose, the idea for, you know, an architectural plan or something like that, and then your finished edited version is almost like a blueprint for what's going to be built. By the time you get to the galleys, also known as proofs, by the way, sometimes these words are used interchangeably, but by the time you get to the galleys, really the house is almost finished. It's just a matter of you walking around that house very carefully, looking around the building and saying, well, actually, that light fixture over there is not the one that I wanted, or it's been put on upside down. Can you please fix that? So let's talk about the first proofs, or the first galleys you receive. So at some point when you've finished and completed that sort of step of the journey with the editor to get the manuscript in the best possible final draft that you can achieve together, that gets sent to the typesetter, and then you are at some point going to receive the galleys, and they usually come in a PDF form. You're going to open up your laptop one morning, click in, see the email, and then you're going to double click on that PDF file and open up the galleys. And there's a kind of emotional thing going on here, because you're getting one step closer to the kind of fully realized version of your book in print. And for most authors, of course, this is the very first time they will see their book, looking that step closer to the finished product. And the first set of galleys, as I have sort of laid out here on the desk behind the table behind me here, the first set of galleys, it's still a chance to catch maybe some major errors or something that's gone a And I can give you an example from this set of galleys. When I got the galleys, there had been a couple of pages. I have several haiku, which are a kind of series of haiku, which I had over several pages. When I received the first set of galleys, these were all condensed onto one page. And a weird thing had happened that I think in the crossover from the software, from one software to the other, some of the words from one haiku had been cannibalized by another haiku, and the first line of that haiku had then been sort of put on to the first line of another. And so you really have to read through the galleys very, very carefully. And I caught this, and it wasn't difficult because it was glaringly obvious when I looked and saw that on the page. And then, of course, that was what I had to mark up. Now, the way you mark up the galleys will be different according to each press or editor you work with. This particular publisher has given me very specific instructions on how to highlight and then show the correction. So I'm using a highlighter and a red pen. And if everything is as it should be, I just write the words "as is" on each of the pages that don't need corrections as well. So then basically what I'm doing is I'm printing out all of the galleys, then I'm marking them up, and then I'm scanning all of the galleys and sending that back to the publisher, also with a Word document attached with the list of corrections in a Word document. So the editor's going to have not just the hard copy I've provided, or rather the scanned hard copy with my sort of physical markings in red ink and my highlighter. They're then also going to have an additional document that explains what those changes are. And it could be something big, like I've just mentioned with those haiku, or it could be something small. And I have an example here of a page that I've marked up. And literally on the page, I don't know if you can see the yellow and red ink, this was the addition of a comma, 2 commas actually, on different lines. And it's your chance to really catch anything that's missing, or that you need to tighten up before the book goes to print. So major issues can be caught, and layout issues too can be tackled during the first set of galleys. So that's a little different to the second set of galleys, because you would have completed that process and then sent all your amendments, your corrections back to the editor, and then they will work on that and put those things right, and then you will receive back the second set of galleys with those corrections made, hopefully. The thing to remember is that at this stage, we are not really rewriting the manuscripts. The second set of galleys really is not the time to be inserting new poems or taking poems out. No, no, no. Editing is really complete at this stage. This is about protecting your poems, not really editing them. You should be working your way through the galleys very carefully, just as you did with the first stage. And you should now see everything in its place as it should be. But maybe on this pass, maybe you catch one thing that you had missed previously, and you're going to put that right and then send that back to the editor and await the final set of galleys. And these usually do come in threes. So you have the first set of galleys, send those back, then you receive the second set of galleys, and then you're going to get to the final stage of galleys. You're still checking for errors that may have been made during the typesetting, but as I said, this is just really about the last finishing touches to the manuscript. What you're looking for are misspellings, misspelled words, missing words, any points of punctuation that are in the wrong places or not there at all, omissions. And you're going through the document. You can read it out loud, but you really want to read it in a sort of very robotic way. You're not reading the poem to make sense. You're just reading it word by word. Another thing you're doing is looking for incorrect italics. And I've got examples of that in these galleys. That's my fault. I've actually used the name of an album, and then later I've used the name of a song, and I've tried to be consistent when I've done that throughout the manuscript. So if it appears italicized in one place but not in the other place, then it needs to be corrected for consistency purposes as well. You're also checking for formatting. This is especially important with poetry. You've got to make sure that all those line breaks and stanza breaks are exactly as you, the poet, had intended. Are the indentations preserved? Are the stanzas in the right place and in the right order? And is the overall feel of your poems kind of intact? Are sections, if you're working with longer form poems, or if you've broken the chapbook or poetry collection down into separate parts, are the sections in the right places? Are the poems in the right places according to those different sections? And are poems starting and ending correctly on the page? You also have to check through the front matter and back matter, and that just means the pages that appear before the actual poetry collection. So that will include things like your biography, your dedication or list of acknowledgements, and of course, if any of the poems in the chapbook have appeared previously in magazines, make sure you acknowledge the editors of those magazines. Here's what you definitely should not be doing at the galley stages. You should not be rewriting poems. You should not be removing poems or putting new poems in or changing the order of different sections. These are things that should happen far earlier in the process with that original Word document, long before you get to the galley stages. So really make sure, just to go back to that earlier stage, that what you're doing there is so thorough and you've had time to think about those changes, and the book is exactly where you want it to be before the editor then sends that copy off to the typesetter. Here's a little trick that you can employ at that earlier stage before you get to the galleys. It's a really good one. I use Microsoft Word. It's really interesting to note that sometimes I can see better with these than I can with these. What I actually do is, on Word, there's a little feature in the Review tab where you can actually get the machine to speak the words back to you, and it comes back in this very sort of robotic kind of AI sounding voice. But I put my headphones in and I listen to the entire manuscript, because I often find that there will be maybe the unintended repetition of a word, like the and then the, that I've not intended. And I can hear this, I can see it with these much clearer than I can with these sometimes. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just that we are processing the information through a different sort of sense. And that gives us an opportunity to catch things that are missing. And I do that every time, and it's a really important step for me. And then I will do it again by reading out when I get the galleys, I'll do the same kind of thing, but this time I'll actually do it, word by word myself, reading the text out loud. But that earlier stage is a really crucial thing for me, so that when I know that when I've sent the final manuscript to the editor, it really is in as good a place as I can get it. There's another thing I'll say about the galley stage, and this is just my personal view. I have nothing against self-publishing or people who choose that route, and in fact you can achieve so much and so much quicker going the self-publishing route, it's not going to move as glacially slow as the traditional publishing industry. That is true. In fact, I can't really use that analogy anymore because the glaciers are melting. So maybe a slow motion movie of a glacier. That's how it often feels. So there are things you can do with self-publishing which you can't do with traditional publishing. My view is this: it is a collaborative experience, and it's very important to hand over some of that control to people who know better than you. Not about the poems or the content of the poems. That's your domain, that's your area of expertise. But certainly when it comes to typesetting or designing the cover of the book, or having that expertise on hand is really invaluable. And some people just aren't willing to let go of that. And I think that's a mistake, because the galleys speak to the relationship that exists. This is a collaborative effort. Yes, you have written the poems, but the book itself, many people are involved in that process, and they have fields of expertise that you maybe do not have. And so it's very important to defer to that. At the same time, I will just say it's very important to say what you want and what you like and what you don't like. So, be loud and clear about the kind of cover design or the things that you think might be a good fit for your poems. Depending on the publisher, they might entirely ignore that and say, well, actually, no, we know best. But more often than not, they're going to listen to your suggestions and then maybe even take those suggestions as a sort of point of, as a springboard into their own kind of creative process. Okay, I'm just going to close out with a few suggestions for you about how to read Galleys, because this is a very important step in the process towards seeing your book in print. And as you can see, I have pages strewn across the table here. This is maybe not the best thing to do, but there is an order, there is method to this madness. What I would do when I've got the Galleys is, first of all, print them off. You must work from a physical copy. I just find that actually with a physical copy, you're taking it one page at a time. It's a slower sort of process, and it should be. And what you're going to do is read through every single page before you even mark anything up. And maybe with a pencil first, anything you see on that first pass, you're going to make a circle or underline something. And then you're going to go back before you mark in ink and just double check those corrections you've made on the page. And then of course, you're going to start using ink on this printout, and you're going to read out loud as well. Read the poems out loud very carefully, and don't read the poem as if you were performing the poem. Read it in a static, word by word fashion, so that you can catch everything, and pay attention also to the punctuation when you're doing that. And when you make your corrections, and as I said, this particular publisher has very strict and clear instruction on how I should make those corrections. But when you do it, do it very clearly. Don't write, this doesn't look right. List the page number, list the line, and write exactly what the line should be and what the error is. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Here I am with the second set of Galleys. I'm going to get stuck into this today, and hopefully by the end of the day, I'll be able to send off the Galleys to the publisher and await the third and final set of Galleys. In the meantime, please do hit the like button and the subscribe button. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. And as always, I will be back soon with more poetry content. Thanks very much for watching.